Well, my name is Vera.
My name is Yvan.
We're here in La Mauricie. We are in Saint-Léon-les-Grains. We're in zone 4B, and we've been here for almost 6 years.
So it's impressive how much you guys got done, because everywhere you look, you see, okay, that had to be done, that had to be done, that had to be done. You focused a lot in the beginning, not exclusively, but you focused a lot on the house. I like the idea that you really used the permaculture principle of your zone 0, then you did your 1 and then your 2. Mm-hmm. And you were just saying, Vera, that when you looked from here and you saw those 2 dead trees that seemed so far, you thought, how in the world, we'll never get that far, because this was all overgrown. It was all just...
Yeah, and you can see an example, like it's all been very stage. I mean, it didn't all happen at once. You can see we still have an area tarped to start preparing the ground. So it's like the no work method. Lay a tarp, let nature do its thing, and eventually come in when you have your vision ready.
So you're really letting that, I don't know what that word is in English, occultation, you're really letting that tarping process work for you, because it takes you, what, half an hour to lay the tarp out, and it will be there for weeks or months.
Yeah, months.
And then when you come back, it's ready to go. It's all set, and especially you get rid of perennial plants that were there.
And, we're using the tarps. We're getting them in the hardware store, like the sheet they used to cover 2x4, so they throw them in the garbage. You go and you ask them if you can take them. So you have huge, like, free tarp, like, that are perfectly well for this, good for this. You just need to put lots of rock on them, but you don't even need to buy the tarp. They are in the garbage.
That's a good tip for anybody who's going, yeah, I need tarp.
Hardware
Any
store.
lumber and hardware store that gets shipments, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not that far from here where they're sawmills, where they're bringing train loads of lumber out. Yeah, make use of it. Let's take a look at the garden. So this is home garden. Which part of it is commercial here? None of it. This is
There's cherry tomatoes. We'll sell them.
A little, yeah. A little.
This is a big home garden.
Yeah, right, but again, we're aiming for a homestead, or like a self-sufficient diet. So we grow a lot of beans for ourselves. A lot of this gets dehydrated or goes in the freezer, or we eat it and share it with our friends. We do sell sometimes when we have a lot, but we don't buy fruits and vegetables from the grocery store during the growing season.
Yeah, we've been freezing peas, like shell peas. So I love shell peas. So we have lots of shell peas.
Mm-hmm. A good freezer is really a must.
Big chest freezer?
Yeah.
Those are, people don't realize, but boy, that pays for itself pretty quick if you're growing and you stock up a whole freezer.
We do a lot of dehydrating too. So a lot of the fruits we dehydrate, people really commonly freeze their strawberries and raspberries for smoothies, but in winter it's really cold here and that's not that interesting, so we eat them dehydrated. And dehydrator also really pays for itself just in the mushrooms. So we grow mushrooms on logs, shiitake mushrooms, and we'll dry those just out on the deck in the sun because they absorb the vitamin D, which you really need in winter, but sometimes we have to finish them in the dehydrator.
So vegetables, mushrooms, fruit. We'll go see the raspberries. You don't smell it?
No.
Wow, it smells like ripe raspberries.
Do you smell it?
Yeah, well, you're used to it now.
I guess I breathe that every day.
But it's like, oh man, just smelling. Ooh. Yeah, so there's a mix of some wild raspberries in here and some old raspberry plants that were put in.
Yeah, but somehow they didn't cross, like the planted one, like, are still nice and big.
Yeah. Taking as a little trail.
Look at that. Let's just take a little look in here.
Take a little look in here.
I mean,
Here.
Just
You know,
to
this
see
is
the
just,
kind of wild stage it's at, but they're still good and nice.
You should go in further where it's more impressive. You're just on the edge.
yeah, just on the edge. It's not as impressive, but you know what? It's,
Yeah. Yeah.
We should have brought that. ice
We
cream
kind of,
container
as you
for
see, make some trails within because I don't know, to manage all that properly would just be like so much effort.
here you go. I'll give it to you. There you go. Enjoy it. Yeah, very nice. I mean,
That was a gift from the property. We didn't know it
yeah, because that's right. You had no way of, it wasn't even as
mentioned.
part of the thing mentioned that there's raspberries, because I guess it had been abandoned or somewhat for a while.
Yeah, for 20 years at least.
20 years this raspberry patch had been
I know. And 20 years after, like all like agronome would say, oh, you have to cut them because they don't produce after so many years. Well, 20 years
Okay.
later, they are like still blooming like crazy.
Yeah, because they give them a lifespan and they say, okay, they reached their lifespan, but you know what? If you stop spraying all the fungicides on them, you have mushrooms and the mycelium helping you. Here you go.
And I don't know if it's more or less than commercial one, but yeah, you make path and whatever, but it's, yeah, they're all there. It's for free.
And the advice of the agronomist that came was to make rows, mow, make it all orderly, and it'll facilitate picking, make it more productive, and replant from new. But we thought it was kind of my dream to live in a sea of raspberries. Who would have thought you could have that? And we're sharing it with so many other living beings that it would be a crime to cut this down. There's warblers nesting all over in here.
And when there's a lot, we do pick a lot. We can pick a lot from there and sell them and invite friends to pick as many as they want. But yeah.
And we still have a revenue from raspberries when it's
and
peak season.
We did like no input at all.
Zero cost.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, there's so many plants coming up. You could select here, these are really good. These are really, and you could just dig up plants from them and even sell the plants because these are still
The new
very,
shoots
very
are,
nice.
The new shoot are like nice and healthy. Like last year, actually, I saw the new shoot and I say, oh my boy, like next year is gonna be so good. You could tell the shoot were all nice and big and strong.
It is an exceptional growing year this year.
Well,
I mean, last year everything failed
Yeah,
horribly.
and it goes
This year it's
all the
amazing.
way very far to the back.
another bed in prep. Hey, that's a very simple technique. You know, you tarp it and let time do its job, and then you come back and you can put anything in there after that.
This red one, I think we found it on the second year we were here. Somewhere in hiding like all clumps up. We took it out and used it.
So would you say a lesson is if you come upon a property that you bought and you see a whole lot of stuff and you think, oh, we just got to put in dumpsters and just load everything and garbage it, you may regret that, gee, we could have used this, that, and I mean, you still had a lot of extra.
Yeah, an old farm is like full of
Treasures.
treasures. Yeah.
This year we planted our beans how they do in Permaculture, and that endless number of farms that I've inspected at 30 inches spacing instead of the market garden way with intensive double rows. And it's been really fun. They're filling in, surprisingly, the gap, and they're going to be extremely productive. So we grow those for dry beans for seed, and they're all heritage varieties. We make mixes and eat slow cooked chilies on our wood stove in winter.
Yeah, beans are a great way to preserve food.
Yeah. Have you ever tried the cutting and come again?
No.
No? Oh, but you keep them for seed.
Yeah.
If you keep them we always grew them for pods. And once you see that the pod production is slowing down, you cut them to about 3 to 4 inches. So you have basically just a few branches. And if you put them in at the right time, early enough in the spring, it will regrow a whole new plant and reflower and reproduce.
Wow.
But those won't really reach the...
How would you cut them? Like at this
I
like
used just
cutters.
yeah.
Or if you have an old, I have an old.
Even a
old-
lawnmower, if you could have it cut.
Set it really high.
But yeah, at the highest it'll go.
But our main crop up here is the garlic, which we harvested 3 beds out of 8 so far. So these are the ones that are left. We have a couple of varieties just because it's good to mix things up a bit. But this is the one that performs best in Quebec, which is the one that everyone grows, the music. It really is awesome. So well adapted to here.
So for people who've never grown garlic and they go, I don't know, when is it time? What's your criteria, Vera, for when is it time for garlic?
To harvest?
Yeah.
Generally 3 weeks after you've harvested your scapes, which is the flower of the garden.
But you could harvest scapes kind of in a
Also
1 week
flexible.
window. You don't go by the dried leaves?
We do also, yeah. Would you say this is ready?
Yeah, one solid dried leaf, that's time enough.
You also have to wait for a window, a dry window, which is tricky this year. Another example of repurposing materials in our abandoned mill, there was a huge stack of drywall, and we have a giant dandelion problem here, so we mulch with drywall because it adds what nutrient is missing in the soil, which is the reason why we have dandelions.
All right, let's head back. So this is your trios. You copied me, right?
That's right.
That's good.
What a source of inspiration. So yeah, we've got a pear, a nitrogen fixer, which is a red alder that we found down by the river.
That's a great thing. I've never used it in a trio. I've suggested it for a long time, but I remember digging. We did a course in the Gaspé, and I said to the students, they said, "What?" I said, "Well, what grows locally, you know?" And they said, "Alder." I said, "Okay, grab a shovel and just go check." And even I was amazed. It's like, wow, it was black. It was just black soil right under the tree. It was a bigger tree, but it was like, wow, the soil improvement. And you could dig 3 meters away and this was sand. Oh yeah. It was like, wow, it's really in its root zone. It improves the soil tremendously. So as long as your fruit tree nearby can connect, it will, once it reaches in there, it's gonna grow. And yeah.
Well, the ones that we dug out, it was actually really hard to find ones with roots because they're all suckering. And so what we did, we experimented with a few, but we actually just buried some of the trunk of the tree to see if it would work. And you can see what we got. It ended up with a much bushier form.
It layered it basically.
Yeah. And then, yeah, this one worked. This one worked anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fruiting, but
It's
we
there.
could see.
When was this planted all here?
Well, those were like quite
This year.
recent this year, but 3-4 years ago.
It's been 3 years now, yeah. And they were either 2 or 3 year old fruit trees. Well, this one's from you a few years ago too. And then we put a little companion plant. Those are those Egyptian onions that self-seed. When they do, we put them in a different hole.
Yeah. Once you've got them, you'll never need more onions. But yeah, no, these are they're looking better than mine, but they're in full sun right now. So this is, and I would almost tell you that you've over fertilized. There's some aphid damage. Aphid's not a problem, it's a great indicator. So ease off on the compost because it's the desire, you've got it. You want your trees to grow and they are growing, but this would have been absolutely, good, and the rest is just overkill. So try it for a year, ease off on your compost addition because they're growing really well. Like this is absolutely kicked in because I know usually digging up a sucker, which is what we do, you don't have a whole lot of roots, but now you can see, I mean, that's 2 feet of growth. It's very nice. I know people in the tropics or subtropics will say, "Ooh, that's not growing that much." Well, we're not in the tropics here or subtropics, that's for sure. Although we do get days that feel like it.
And just a quick question while we're here. Pruning wise, since we have so much snow here,
Yeah.
you were saying that we'd prune up to the 4 feet or 3 feet. So maybe I'd consider removing.
You know what? You'd have to see, like let the trees tell you, because you get snow up to here maybe, The problem is it's not snow. It's when it melts in the spring and the ice grabs around the branch and then it collapses. Because sometimes on a hot day, a warm spring day, it's melting so fast underneath that the whole mass can drop. And when that happens, that's when. But you know what? You had one tree that lost a branch like that. I wouldn't be too concerned. As long as your bottom branches are pretty horizontal, it takes a lot to
And
tear
this
them
one
out.
really is horizontal already.
Well, it could be a little more, but
Right?
they're,
That's pretty great.
yeah. But you don't have, or do you have rabbits around here or hare?
No.
No.
No. Okay.
We had a rat musqué one time, and our cat hunted it.
Well, it's still in the upper.
It would be something to keep in mind because you could even have voles.
We
And
definitely have voles.
yeah, so you may want to consider putting on tree guards.
We did, but I just took them off because the trees
Okay.
outgrew them, and I wanted to weed. But we'll put them back this fall.
We have a great predator for voles and mice.
Yeah.
If you're
Good
Our cat.
predator.
Yeah.
your cats, that can help a lot.
The other nitrogen fixer that we planted, besides the red alder that we found by the river, is the carragana, which our neighbors were growing as a hedgerow along their road as a privacy screen, and we just took some cuttings in the fall, and those are really easy. They rooted, no problem.
I always say, grow what grows like a weed. If it grows like your alder, I mean, just look at it. That's a very happy. That's very happy. So
This happened very fast, like this.
We did that with my brother.
Oh, yeah.
But you mean the
it was
growth?
the growth, yeah. It was not that
Yeah,
it wasn't
well,
small and then
It was
something-
nothing. It
well,
was
you
a
could
root.
see this is where it was this spring. So it's also grown 2 to 2.5 feet, so almost a meter of growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, and it's not very old. So if it grows like a weed, grow it.
This tree is one of the ones that's in more shade compared to the other ones, but I don't think it's having an effect on its growth.
No.
Well, just basically an hour of shade, maybe, because
Yeah.
the full sun, like the sun rises there. So yeah, like just
Yeah, we are very lucky to have this south-facing slope, a gentle south-facing slope, protected by all these
Yeah,
buildings and
surrounded
walls.
almost on 3 sides by trees. You've got a microclimate for sure happening here. And almost, your big exposed rocks. Rocks could
Also-
create, yeah, if you can almost use rocks as a mulch. If you have enough of them, just mulch with rocks. They're big rocks so that
heat.
heat would be a big addition. It comes down to how much work do you want to, let the tree tell you, these have grown so well. Everything has about 2 feet of growth. So
So all of these, I would bend them to the horizontal.
now is a good time.
Yeah,
This is a little late on that one, but you know what? Even just putting it like that, there's your horizontal branch for pear, not for the others. The others you want to be below horizontal.
Right.
And that thing, look, these, it should flower next year.
Neat.
Those are already spurs that seem to be set, some of them. So
Neat.
yeah, it's always exciting. What's it like when you say, hey, yeah, those trees, you're having your first fruit coming in, and I tell you, people, you kind of underestimate, like your raspberries. You know what it is to be absolutely abundance is where I don't know what I'm going to do with it all, and there's so much going to waste. These trees will hit that point where you're going to go, yeah, we're going to have to harvest this pear, but we got 3 more. What are we going to do with all those pears? It's always a good problem, but you almost have to have a plan for what am I going to do with it? Because it's not going to be every year. Some years, you just won't get as much. But when you get, you can get a lot. In fact, that you said dehydrating. So drying your fruit, great. Sauce, just cook it up. It's easier to throw a whole lot in a pot and just sauce them all and freeze that or can it.
We kind of designed our basement entrance to the house so that you could wheelbarrow fruit right in. And the fruitery in our village, in the closest village, one of our first visits in, we started selling annuals, tomatoes to them. And someone came in and said, you don't have any plums. And the owner of that shop said, Vera, do you know where we can get plums? I said, I'll get back to you in 5 years.
Yeah, well, 'cause you know what? That's what it is. Some things, like pear is kind of the exception because you want to pick pear before it's really ripe. Because you pick it, if it's ripe, then the inside is usually, it's overripe because it ripens from the inside out. So pears, you'll get them like you could get if you were growing your own. Almost, in that it's the same pick condition, but plum, totally different because you cannot transport a really ripe plum or peaches. Like a deliciously ripe peach, yeah, you can't ship that. I mean, it's like it'll bruise if you grab it too hard. So the same with plums. That's where once people try it, they'll go, oh, yeah, that's
And
a
I
great
remember
thing.
one of the farms that I was mentoring at, which is really not far from you. It doesn't exist anymore, but it's just down the road from you. He had a kind of a CSA panier concept, and in one of his weeks he did plums because they're so hard to find that are, like you're saying, juicy, local, delicious, unbeatable. You just don't find that in a store.
Yep. Let's take a look at the last rows.
Yeah.
So what are you planning on adding to this? The shrubs and the perennial, some more things?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, I mean, you saw how well your currants are doing.
Right.
So if you ever have more currant plants, absolutely, you could put currants, at the base of these trees. Was this bought or was this recycled?
Recycled.
Wow, this
Yeah,
is
I know.
such a tough,
It's beautiful.
this is so tough.
That's what we use to tarp most of our farm, plus the hardware plastic.
Just to reduce the risk of ever nicking the bottom of your bark, I would put in something around it. Comfrey grows really well. Just put a few comfrey roots and let comfrey grow, or daylily or rhubarb, something that just so you don't go near the trunk and the trunk is protected so you never.
But you would put a rhubarb this close, like
Oh,
these are a
absolutely.
2-foot little circle, right?
Sure.
A rhubarb could be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Oh yeah.
That's like saying, did something grow there?
Okay.
If something grew there, something can grow there.
Okay.
The rhubarb will do well for 4 or 5 years, and
then
then
it's
you
too
just
shady.
won't harvest as much. But you know what? It's still covering, it's still doing the job of, you don't have to weed.
Okay. Because we're not really doing a lot of weeding here. I mean, it's a 2-foot circle,
That's it.
and this grass.
But getting,
goes in the
yeah,
mulch.
getting that to be something growing.
Sure.
But absolutely, in between here, like for sure,
But
I
what
like.
you mean is cutting another
Yeah,
hole.
the way we did it was we would make a hole the size of the cutting.
Right.
It was in plastic. This was not going to forgive very much, but make a hole 1 inch, just a 1-inch hole, and stick your cutting in August. We're coming, and just stick it in, and man, your currant will absolutely thrive in here because it's warm. It'll root really well this fall even, and then bang, you'll reach absolute abundance with currants. Currants, I have the range. I go from gooseberries are the ones that still do well when it's the shadiest. Then I find it's black currants, and then it's red currants. Red currants need almost full sun, but they will still grow and produce, just not quite as much. But your trees are spaced. I mean, yes, eventually they will
touch.
they will touch.
They're 12-foot spacing.
Yeah. But it's like, you know what? What are you in the next 5 years? You can still produce an awful lot of fruit for 5 years.
I guess my reluctance to do that is that we have so many other areas that already have those fruits that I wouldn't want to cut a hole to make a future weeding problem.
That's the key, is you want to make the hole so small that there won't be a weeding. Like that's why what we would do is we'd actually had a rod that we would poke through the plastic,
Yep.
and then we stick a cutting.
Okay.
That's the size of the rod. So it was put it in and we never had to come back, which I like not having to maintain. So if you could do the smallest hole, make it 1/2 inch, just enough for the cutting to come out, because it will grow. And you don't want to, because I found that if the cutting has grown a lot, like the shrub has, and now it's still constricted, then sometimes they'll die off just because they're squished. but the trade-off is you have absolutely no maintenance. Okay, you know what? This has been great to see your place. The orchard is just basically it's almost one of your last projects to have gotten started. But I guess the lesson is that you did what one of the things I say is just start, and you've done a great start. You're over the hump. 6 years in, you're well over the hump. You're going to be here for years, and you got a great project. Thanks, Yvan.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for
Thank you,
visiting.
Vera. Off for some raspberries.